Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Nikki Clucci, and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back. We are back today with Ashley Johnston. I am pumped about this girl because I met her through my friend Connie. We teach fitness together. And Ashley is our very first animal control peace officer from the city of Edmonton. We have had animal control from city of Calgary, but she also comes to us with a conservation background and a city of Calgary transit peace officer background. And she worked at Calgary Young Offender Center. So she's got tons of different experiences, tons of different roles, and we're going to dive into it all. Ashley's been in law enforcement for just about 10 years now, and she's ready to share her journey with us today. So welcome, Ashley. How are you?
Hi, so nice to finally meet you. I've heard so many good things through Connie.
Connie's lying. Connie's lying. She's just being nice. She's just saying that I'm nice, but I'm actually a psycho.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm so excited to come on and just talk about, I guess like my journey through law enforcement and everything and all the steps I've kind of gone through to get to this point, because it's definitely been a ride, and I don't think it's your usual kind of like transition through law enforcement. I've definitely made a lot of movements over time.
I think it's cool though, because and we do say this, and I've said it in other episodes, we kind of go in like a roller coaster usually in our law enforcement career, right? So we start something, we're like, this is awesome. This is totally rad. Like, I love this. This is amazing. And then we kind of hit that this is not so awesome, like 2-year-ish mark, right? Sometimes it takes a little longer. Sometimes takes a little less. But it's usually like that 2 to 3 years. And then we start to look, and we're either looking for, are we going to try something different? Are we going to promote? Are we going to bail completely? And so you've kind of hit that ebb and flow, like four, and then into kind of what you're doing now. So take me back. So starting in Calgary at the Young Offender Center, that was kind of your first role. How did you were you always kind of thinking as you were growing up, like, this is something I wanted to do? Did you fall into it? Was it something that was like, you'd be really good at this, you should try it out? Or like, how did you get into this?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully I've been around long enough that I've kind of been asked the question before. So now I have some kind of like idea, because before I'd probably say it just kind of happened. But I think just growing up, my dad, he has like very strong like moral values, and he's always kind of like expected us to do the right thing, like no matter what, like something we don't want to do, it doesn't matter, like make sure you're doing the right thing. And then just I think largely it's just the people that I like was surrounded around growing up. Like I had a coach who worked for EPS, who I just respected a lot, all those people in my life, and just like being in sports teams, working in team environments. I feel like law enforcement kind of echoes the same kind of environments. You're all like trying to work together to achieve the same goal. You're relying on those people, and eventually like everybody feels like family. So that's, I think, kind of what brought me to law enforcement. And in that time, I was watching a lot of Criminal Minds. Criminal Minds.
There is honestly, there is that little like media thing behind it, because most people that I talk to, they're like, I kind of had it in the back of my head, and then they started watching some show, or there was something in the show that they were like, this is what I want to do, right? Like for me, again, it was Silence of the Lambs when I was like 9.
Oh yeah.
Like, I want to be Clarice. I'm Clarice, right? So yeah, it is. That media thing does play, I think, for sure into it. So you said that you had a coach. So what sport did you play, or do you play?
Oh, that is actually how I know Connie. I played ringette.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so growing up, I played ringette pretty competitively. So I played double A growing up, and then after double A, I played at university. So for the U of A ringette team.
Cool.
So that's kind of where I met Connie. We played for the U of A together. But yeah, while I was playing double A, that my coach for that team, he was EPS. He worked for EPS.
Very cool. That is one sport that I have never ever tried at all. And I've always been totally intrigued by. Like I've watched it and I've had people like vaguely explain it to me, but I haven't ever tried it like at all. And I have really good friends that played like high level. Same thing like with you, like Chelsea Stone. I don't know if you know Chelsea Stone.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, Stoner. Yeah. So like
Yeah.
and like so like she's explained it to me multiple times and I'm just like, yeah, like, I totally get it. And I've watched it with her and she's like, and then this, and I'm like, but I've never tried it. So that's one thing. Maybe that'll be my 2025 bucket list. So I'm gonna try wearing it. I could skate, so that's good. And I played a version of hockey. I'm not good at it, but I can give her a shot. So maybe adding the whole skill set of now hooking a ring with the stick and trying to maintain control of that. We'll see how that goes.
2025.
Yeah, right. Yes. That's super cool. Okay. And so like you basically just kind of said like this is something that is like leans towards what I, my values, my morals, my ethics, what I am, kind of drawn to then. That's really cool. And then when you finished, what did you do your degree in university then?
I did my degree. So I had a major in sociology, a minor in psychology, and then I specialized in criminology. And then in my last year of school, I did this community criminology project, it's called. So it's like a mini master's. It's unfortunate because now I don't get to say I did a master's, but I did the work of a master's in compressed time. So instead of doing it over like a 2-year period, it was a 1-year period. And it's kind of the same thing. I got to work with EPS. I worked at the domestic violence unit and just did research within the unit. And yeah, then I had to present my proposal to a group of people. And yeah, it was a really cool experience. And that was also like one of my first exposures with EPS, honestly.
That's awesome because I did mine same thing. I have my degree in criminology from the U of A and we didn't have that option. So I don't know. You probably went after me, I'm assuming, because Connie's much younger than me too. I wish I would have had something like that because I think that would have been super cool. And I've always thought like, oh, maybe I'll go back and do my master's. Maybe, for me now it's like, well, there's not really a point. Like it's not going to help me get a different job or anything like that. But I'm still fascinated with what I learned at university. Like I thought that was the coolest subject matter to learn. I loved all of my classes. Like it wasn't like a struggle to go to class. Like I was just like, this is fucking rad. Like I'm learning so many cool things. So yeah, I think that would be really, really cool.
Well, it's so funny because with that experience of working in the domestic unit, that I think is a kind of what I guess like formed or like pushed me into the direction I kind of did. When I was there, I remember talking to this female officer and I remember talking to her about like her role and how she felt about it. And I remember her saying, I think about this all the time, how she says that she would never want a different job and she can't imagine doing a different job that she does now, but she would never recommend it to any of her friends. And I think for me, that really stuck for me because my whole journey here has been like, okay, what am I going to find that is like, I don't even know, like not as hard, like policing is such a hard job and it's very respectable and I respect everybody who does it, but it definitely comes with a toll. And I feel like my journey has been like, what will give me everything that policing could potentially give me, but with maybe less.
Yeah.
Not even work, but just like not consequences either. Just
no,
better balance, maybe.
Yes, totally. Yeah. A better balance. I think not only a better balance work life, like shift work, that plays a huge, like people, and we talked about it kind of before we started recording, like people, jumping around and stuff like that. A big part of it is the shifts. If the shifts suck, if the shift pattern sucks, you cannot have a life. Like it negates everything that you want to do outside of work. And if you negate everything that you want to do outside of work, then you become very fucking bitter and resentful real quick because you are just working all the time, right? So that's a huge thing is, does the shift pattern work? Does the shift length, right? If you're not a 12-hour shifter, those are going to be fucking awful. If you're an 8-hour person and you would rather work 12s because then you're working less days, then 8s are going to suck, right? So there's definitely that balance for that. And then I think, again, there's the balance of if what you're doing all day, every day is traumatic and every single day is a fucking horrible day, you're going to burn out so fast. No human being can have that level of trauma foisted upon them every single day and survive well. Like you can't.
And so I
Mhm.
think it is. I think that's totally a fair, like finding the balance of shift work, of life, of work balance, of what you're dealing with. Yeah, that's a totally a fair call for that. So then how did you end up going from Edmonton to Calgary?
Uh, I wouldn't say there's any particular reason. I know at that time, like I was just finishing university. I think honestly, part of it is just luck of the draw. At that time, I had been like applying to a bunch of different areas. I honestly just wanted to change and I wanted to experience like some kind of life outside of Edmonton. I grew up here. So I basically applied everywhere but Edmonton. And it was just, I just got lucky, honestly. And I mean, I applied to places in High River. Like I was willing to go almost anywhere just for like a different experience.
Mhm.
I am very blessed that I got Calgary.
Like you said, kind of a switch because it's not like going to Peace River because holy
Mhm.
fuck, that change is big, right? To go from Edmonton to like, now I live in Peace River, holy
Yeah.
fuck, or Grand Cache, right?
Yeah.
So it's not as big of a like a shock that way, but it's still far enough away that you can be like, yes, like I'm not in the same city and I have to learn how this city works and what, like the things that are down here, but you're still it's not such a massive culture shock of like big city to tiny city or big city to giant, even bigger city like a Vancouver or Toronto move. So I can see that. That's a total fair move and change. Like,
Yeah, it's so funny now because like after when I was initially like willing to go anywhere, like in my mind, I was like, oh, I'll just canoe on the lakes, like in the rural areas and do all
yes.
the fishing and all that stuff. And then I did like 5 months of training in Lac La Biche for conservation in the winter. I did not go canoeing once. I'll tell you, I did not go canoeing once.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Blue Line Fitness Testing is a premier law enforcement fitness testing and training center based in Edmonton. Specializing in helping individuals prepare for the physical demands of a career in law enforcement, we offer comprehensive fitness evaluations, specialized training programs, and classes tailored to meet the unique needs of our clients. Our facility hosts a range of classes and are committed to fostering a supportive and empowering environment where clients can achieve their fitness goals. Our team includes experienced trainers who bring specialized expertise in law enforcement, self-defense, personal training, and rehabilitation. We engage through our community through challenges, events, and our podcast, and we are dedicated to helping individuals succeed in their fitness journeys and career aspirations in law enforcement. Are you looking to get started with your career? Come see Blue Line Fitness Testing, and we'll get you there.
Does sound like it would be so good, right? And it's funny because you go places like on like a tropical holiday, right? And everyone talks about like, oh, it must be so nice to go like snowshoeing and cross country skiing and downhill skiing and snowboarding and skating and like all these awesome sledding. And I'm like, do you know how many fucking times we do that in the wintertime? Once. We go
Yeah.
fucking once. One time. And then it's like, boxes checked. We've done the sledding for this winter. Oh, boxes checked. We've gone to the mountains for the winter. Like,
Yeah.
it is not. We do not do these things on the regular.
Yeah, I fooled myself. Definitely fooled myself.
I love it. And 5 months in Lac La Biche. Yeah, that's a long one. And the conservation training is freaking long. Like I had a buddy that just finished it a couple of years ago, and same thing. He was like, and now I'm back and I go to work, and now in a week I go to do this other training, and now we've got to do this horseback riding training, and now we've got to, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys are just in training all the freaking time for that one. So yeah, that's insane. So you got on with Calgary Young Offender Center as the first kind of kick at the can for law enforcement then.
Oh yeah, that was one of my first experiences in law enforcement. That was like my first real job working in the field.
And what was your opinion of it? Did you like it? What was the take on it?
Well, it's funny because, I met my partner there. I met my husband there in jail.
Yeah,
So
as we do.
Yeah, as we do. First job, met him there.
Yeah.
So that was great. And I'll always be grateful for that. And I met a lot of amazing people there. And I know there are a lot of differences between like the adult remand centers and the Calgary Young Offender Centers. I got a lot of good skills there, and I'm very lucky to have people who would support me and help me like hone my skills in a place, especially because the Young Offender Center is smaller than like an adult remand. So I definitely got a lot more care, I'm sure, and focus. Working there, I remember like one of my first weeks, my partner was involved in a serious incident. So it was a real eye opener, honestly, working within the jail. And it's probably it still is like one of the times that I think about is probably one of like maybe the more traumatic times I had in law enforcement, just because it's that first one, that first incident where it's like, okay, this is real life. This is actually happening. My partner needs help like right now. And it's kind of like that test where it's like, we're either going to do this and move through it and act, or you're going to freeze up. So thankfully in that situation, I was able to act and do the right things. But there definitely is that moment where you like can freeze up for a second. And I mean, I guess that could have been like a make or break for me at that point.
I think it is for lots of people. Honestly, I think, and I mean, I saw it like being the DDO, you get a new staff, it's their first code. They leave and they never come back. Some of them would leave and they'd never come back. And you're like, okay. And like, and you know, like again, once you've been in it for a while, you're like, okay, good. Like, no offense to that person, but like good, because I can't have you working here. Like this job is just not for you, which is fair. These careers are not for everyone. Like working with kids in a young offenders institution is not for everyone. Like you said, there's people that can work with kids and there's people that can work with adults, and some of them cannot do both. They cannot work with the other ones, right? There's a few that could work with both, but I mean, it is. And the perception again, coming in as female, oh, the kids are going to be easy. Nothing's going to pop off. Nothing's going to go wrong. Fuck you guys and those preconceived notions. Cause sometimes those kids are 1,000 times worse than the adults are. And the restrictions are a lot stricter on how you can deal with young offenders versus how you can deal with adult offenders. And it's only gotten worse since like in the evolution of corrections. So yeah, I can see that. And it being your first like real one. And I think the other part of that is when it actually like clicks home, because you know, going in there into any law enforcement career, going in there, I'm putting my life on the line. You hear it all the time. Like you're walking into the danger zone. Like you need to always be aware, and you like know it, but you don't like know it until you're like, holy fuck. Like, okay, for real, I could have died. Like I actually, holy shit. And then it hits home and then you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Why did I pick this? Like, especially coming out of university and it being your first one, right? You're like, I could have done anything. I could have literally done fucking anything. And I'm here.
I could have been a high river.
Right. And I'm fucking here. Like, so yeah, no, I can totally see that. And it does guide then how the rest of that time goes, because now you've always got it in the back of your head. You're always, like you said, okay, did I make the right decision? Did I do the right thing? I didn't freeze, but I still had that micro pause.
Yeah.
Should I have had that micro pause? Like, and yeah, that's the other part of the law enforcement is hindsight. You're always looking back and going, did I do the right thing? Did I do it in the right order? Could I have done something better? I probably could have done this better.
That's exactly it. Honestly, I feel that all the time. I'm like, especially after that incident, it's like, hey, I could have done this better. I need to be prepared in case something else happens or the next time, or like, I need to be prepared for these situations. I need to know everything. Like, I need to make sure I have a good understanding of like how everything works so that like I don't miss a step.
I think when we say that too, we also have to have grace with ourselves in that we're never going to get it 100%. Never, because you're never going to be faced with that exact situation in the exact time, in the exact context of all the other things going on. That will never happen again. You might get a situation that's pretty close where, this same altercation, this same inmate, even or this same, whatever, but all the other stuff that's wrapped around it is not going to be the same. And so that, I fucked it up and I should have done better. Like we're always going to feel that way. But I think giving ourselves some grace in that, if you did fuck up, well, you learned something. Like you said, you learn, okay, well, next time I'm not going to do this, or next time I'm going to fucking know this so that I can do this, this, and this when I see this happen. Right. So yeah, I can definitely see that side of things. Like moving through that. So when you were there, were you a unit officer? Like I can't remember. You guys are like, were you a case?
Yeah, they kind of
you
have the
guys
same thing. I think it's kind of the reverse. They have unit officers, and then they have kind of like security officers, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I did a bit of both. I was mainly security, so responding to codes and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then working control. And then if they needed people to fill in, I'd work the unit.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a bit of both.
Yeah. And how many inmates, like how many kids did you guys have when you were there? What was your count?
Again, not as much as you guys would have had, and it was so long ago. Oh, honestly, I can't remember. I want to say somewhere around 30.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Isn't near as much as you guys have. 30 on like a unit, maybe.
yeah. No, that sounds about right. And then from there, you basically said, this is no longer for me. Is that kind of what drove you into City of Calgary Transit? Or was it just like, this is a natural evolution? I kind of feel like I've hit what I can do here and I want to see where else I can go?
Yeah, I think at that point I was just looking to kind of get more exposure into like different like training, and I just wanted more experience in different areas. And that is, I guess, what kind of drove me to apply to transit. Just, yeah, I just wasn't getting any new experiences or training really with corrections at that time. Just, it was going to other people who had been there for a long time, which is fair. But I wanted just like more training and more experiences. So that's when I applied to transit. And honestly, I have such like deep love for Calgary Transit, and like all the people that work there were so amazing and so supportive. I still talk to people these days, and like I'll still like visit with them, and there were so many people there who were so supportive of training me and like growing me to be a better officer, and like having like faith in me as an officer to like make the right decisions. So I feel like for that, like transit is definitely more of a job where you're going out with another partner. You're relying on yourselves to kind of solve a problem in a situation. Different kind of from jail, where if something bad happens, like, someone will be there within seconds.
Mm-hmm.
With transit, especially in Calgary Transit is different than Edmonton Transit. In Calgary Transit, we had a lot of authorities. So we were able to do some criminal charges. We could arrest on warrants, and then do all the bylaw like trespassing, do all those kind of arrests. So we did have a lot of authorities with working in Calgary. So there's just a lot of responsibility, and they really take care of you and train you to make sure you understand the job well and your authorities well. So they don't really like throw you into anything blind. They're making sure that you're going through training with a trainer for a long period of time, and they understanding everything thoroughly before actually going into the role.
Yeah, that is a huge difference from corrections. And I always say this to everybody. Like, I'm like, if you want to know how to all of a sudden be an officer, go to corrections. Because they're not going to give you, they're going to go, here's the unit. Here's how to do a pat down. Here's how to do a strip search. And go. Like, and then they put you on the unit and you're like, what the fuck? Right. Yeah. So yeah. And I mean, corrections does it backwards. Like we really do. We do on the job training and then we send you to basic training. We are the only law enforcement agency that does it. Everybody else, and we've fucking argued about it. Every other agency, you go, you do basic training. You are well versed in all the aspects of your job before you actually set foot out there to now do the job and enforce the laws and things like that. And so yeah, I do think that's something that we fuck up massively in corrections, and I will argue it to the ends of the earth until nobody listens. But yeah, and so when you went to Calgary Transit, was your end goal, like when you first got into corrections, was your end goal like, oh, I'm going to do this and get some experience and then I want to go to police? Or were you just kind of like, I'm just going to wade in and see what I like and what I don't like?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That was, I think my initial thought is just good. We're going to, again, from the beginning, I think my mind was always like, we'll see if I like something that is going to give me some kind of, I don't know, some kind of happiness or like excitement the same that policing would. And I'm like, I will try these law enforcement jobs to see if I can picture myself doing this for a very long time. And I mean, for corrections, I definitely met my time where I was like, okay, I don't think I can see myself doing this for the 20 years
Mhm.
or whatever, however long. I don't even want to think about it.
35 and
35. Oh God, yeah.
yeah.
And then transit is truly one where when I left, I was sad, but because the people there were so amazing and so great. But again, you with transit, like especially with Calgary Transit, like being able to arrest everybody, like, people for warrants and charges and breaches, you get into a lot more physical altercations just due to the nature of the job. Like nobody wants to get arrested, nobody wants to go to jail.
Yeah.
Like some people will go willingly, but not everybody does, and just due to like the stuff that you come across, it's just a lot more violent. You're just in a lot more dangerous situations. You see a lot more. But like overall, it would be a job if there were nowhere else. Well, that just sounds wrong. If there were nowhere else to go, I'd go back there because the people are so supportive and the job was fun. It was just if I were like 20 years down the road, can I do this? And I guess at that point, I was like, I'm not sure if I could do this like 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's, again, it's a total fair. I love how self-aware you are about, like, I'm going to start to actually take a step back and think about this, because a lot of times we get into it and we're like, oh, but the money's so good. And, oh, I don't want to go and be a rookie again. And I don't want to go through basic training again. And I don't want to go and learn new shit. So I'll just stay here, but I'm fucking miserable. And I hate my life and this sucks. And right. And like, so the amount of people, and I mean, I'm sure you could name people right now that you know that are in these careers in all 4 of the places you've been. Who are those people, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but at what stage do you say it's time for me to pull the pin? I'm not going to be here for 20 years. And I think, again, a big shift and change for you going from corrections, like you said, where the response team is, I call the code, maybe I'm scrapping for a little bit with this inmate, but I know the response team's coming through the door pretty quick, and there's going to be a team of 6 or 8 or however many are on this team responding to help me, versus now it's you and your partner, you're on some fucking train station somewhere, just the 2 of you scrapping, trying to arrest somebody, fighting with somebody while the public films you, while everybody is watching the fucking show, right? And either cheering for you or not cheering for you or fucking calling you out, right? And there's no response team coming. And if they are, they're fucking 5 minutes away on the train trying to get to you. Like, that's a big shift. That's a big shift. And to do that regularly, like daily, basically, for a lot of our transit guys, especially now, like if we're talking, current day and all of the shit that's going down with all the transit centers in Alberta, like it's fucking out of control, right? What year were you doing this? When were you there?
Ooh.
I know now I'm asking the tough questions.
Let's see. Probably I was there during COVID, so maybe I think I quit around 2022, maybe minus 4 years. Yeah, my math is not going to be perfect, but around the time. I was definitely there during COVID, though.
Yeah, the math doesn't have to math perfectly. Yeah. So, well, then again, so add that added level of like, oh, now let's do it with masks on and let's enforce the mask laws. Like, great. That's fucking so fun to do. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, like you were saying, when we talk about like ebbs and flows of the career, the other thing that can make or break a career is who you work with. So if you, again, the job could suck wang and we hate it, but the people are so good that you're like, well, misery loves company, and so we'll all be in this shit together. Like, I mean, there was definitely times at the jail where literally the only reason I stayed was because my crew was so good. And every day we went into work, we had a fucking blast, even while the jail was blowing up around us. And we were like, holy fuck, we've been to 8 codes today. And like, this is ridiculous. But you're working with a rock star team and you're like, it makes it good. So you stick around. So yeah, I think, like the shift structure, the what you're seeing every day, the people you work with, that makes a huge difference. Yeah.
And that's like the hardest thing I find is just like the change, nothing stays the same. You're never going to be with the same people. Like you can hope to stay with the same people. And like you can definitely enjoy your time being with the same people, but like generally there's people are going to move up, things are going to change, people are going to take on new roles. And even like the same thing, like looking back at transit now, like I always tell myself, and this is the only thing that keeps me somewhat level, is even if I were to go back, it's not the same as when I left. So much has changed. As much as I would like to think it's the same people, like my partners have gone on to Calgary Police. Some are still there. Some have changed roles. And then the department itself has changed so much. Even from what I knew and my experience that I had, it'll never be the same if I went back. And I just have to enjoy the memory as it was and the experience as it was.
I feel that so deeply because that's exactly the same with corrections. People ask me all the time, are you ever going to go back? You ever going to go back? And I think about it. But the thing is, you can look back with rose-colored glasses too, right? And when now that you're separated from it, and you do, I mean, you remember some of the shit stuff, like very, very, like clearly, but like you remember the awesome stuff too. And I always say that, like, oh, you know, like there were stages and corrections that I fucking loved, had a blast, but like, and so then, yeah, so you're like, yeah, you know, I would love to go back. Like, it'd be so much fun. It's such an easy job to do. Like, and then, but I think to myself too, like, okay, what I'm thinking of at minimum was 5 years ago for me. And that wasn't awesome 5 years ago. Corrections wasn't awesome 5 years ago. Like, there's a bunch of shit in politics that changed that like made our jobs really fucking hard to do. And none of the people are still there. Like literally none of my team are still there. They've all been moved to other jails or they've, you know, taken promotions or they've gone elsewhere. Like the team is not there. Like I'd be going back and be like, I hate all of you people. I hate every single person that works here. Right?
I remember this.
Yeah. So then what was the shift then to go to conservation?
Well, again, conservation was kind of my closer to police in my mind. Less of what I deal with potentially with transit. So I didn't have a great idea. I had family who did fish and wildlife, and like personally, I love to fish. That's what I do in my spare time. I fly fish. So I was like, perfect. Sign me up. Dream job. And just like being outdoors, like I camp a lot. So it just kind of, I felt like it mirrored a lot of what I do in my daily life. So I thought, okay, lots of what I do in my daily life, law enforcement, blend them together. And this is the dream job.
I love that you say that you fly fish because I literally was just at the fishing hole. I have to say it quietly so that my husband doesn't hear. But I was at the fishing hole to get him a present. And I was like, you know, the one thing I don't know how to do is fly fish, like at all. Like I have no fucking clue how to do it. And there was a poster on the wall and it was like fly fishing camp. And I was like, you know what? I might fucking sign up for this. But hey, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be like, hey, Ashley, let's go fucking fly fishing. Teach me what I need to know. Because again, I would much rather learn from a female. No offense to all the guys out there who are, I'm sure, great and very patient. I need to learn it from a female because we understand each other. And when I fuck it up, you're going to make fun of me, but you're going to laugh and then you're going to teach me properly. You're not going to make me feel stupid. So guess where we're going to go this summer, Ashley? We're going fly fishing.
Any day.
That's awesome. And yeah, and the camping too, like, and this is, I hear this a lot from people that are in conservation. Like they see this side of things and they're like, this is amazing. Like, look at all the cool, I'm going to be on a quad. I'm going to be on a snowmobile and I'm going to be in the bush and I'm going to be here and I'm going to be doing this. It's going to be rad. And then same with Alina. So Alina Monk was in, I think season 4 she was on with us. And same thing. She's moved now into a different role with City of Edmonton, actually. Oh. And for her, it was the loneliness. It was being out there by herself, no partner. She's like, Nikki, you know me. I'm like the most social person. I couldn't sit in a truck all by myself all day, every shift. She's like, I loved the job. I loved what I was doing. She's like, but you're alone all day long. And like, again, backup is like an hour and a half away now if something goes wrong. And so that was her catalyst to move out, right? Was just, she didn't like being alone. And so for you, because you were there, you said just over a year, what was that like? Like, did you like the actual role? Did you like the job you got to do? Or was it different than what you kind of believed it to be?
It was definitely different from what I believed it to be. I think the role itself is very dependent on where you are placed within Alberta.
Mm.
The role in Kananaskis is 100% a different job than what you do in what I was doing in Calgary. And especially if you're up north, depending where you are in the province, you're dealing with different things. So Kananaskis is very heavy on like bear safety, and they'll monitor bears and they have more interactions with wildlife. And it's just like the people in that area, it's just so compact. There's just way more human animal interactions than what I would experience. We still got wildlife experience and exposures, just not the same as you would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the other thing is when you're in more remote areas, like if you're in Fort McMurray or Kananaskis or some of those other areas, and you're out of your zone, like you said, you're going to be the only one, and there's not going to be really anybody too close to respond. So for me, like being in Calgary, we weren't really primary on too many calls because you have Edmonton police so close to you. They're going to be primary picking up most of the calls. And like EMS is there right in the city.
Mm-hmm.
We had a big zone, but most of the calls were within Calgary. So for us, it's not the same as being out in Fort McMurray or in those very like remote areas.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was kind of a bit different from what I imagined. The training that they do is really good. You get to do your swift water rescue, like your ice water or the cold water rescue. We got like firearm training. You get your active responder training. So there is a lot of cool training that I got to do. Specifically for in Calgary, it would be less likely that I'd be able to use those skills though, compared to other areas. So definitely depending on like what areas you're in, like Kananaskis, you're definitely doing more of that stuff. You're in more remote areas. Calgary, not so much, just because of all the other agencies that are around you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a lot more agencies there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like you said, the location does play a big part. Even like we had fish and wildlife officers on, and they were saying, like what they deal with up in Peace River Grand Prairie is totally different than what they're dealing with down south, Lethbridge kind of Waterton area. Right. And so like even just geographical and animal based and like, so yes, you're getting the same training, but you're doing totally different jobs in different parts of the province. And so exactly. I think that's something, I never really would have thought about that in the context of like you're saying of being close to a big city now too. And then, yes, you're trained in swift water rescue, but so is Calgary Fire Department. And they're
exactly
a fuck of a lot more trained than you are.
Exactly. So, fire does it all the time. So of course they're going to be the first ones to respond, or the primary responders, because something that they do constantly.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll just stand here and do traffic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then, so to go from conservation now to animal control with City of Edmonton, that kind of jump and that move back up to Edmonton and that type of stuff. So what was the kind of catalyst for that?
I'd say one of the biggest catalysts for it. So it's so funny because I feel like I've made such good relationships with people throughout my career. So there was actually a guy I went to training with for conservation, and that's where he used to work. So he told me about it. He told me how he liked it, and he had a lot of positive things to say about it. He thought that I would like it. So that was kind of, one of my kind of catalysts for specifically going to animal control. Another kind of move that I wanted, and part of the reason why, honestly, I left transit was because all my family is up in Edmonton. And for like my husband and I, it was kind of a point in our life where we wanted to be closer with my family. Mm-hmm. So we did want to make that move eventually. And with transit, there's no kind of transfer within there. Mm. So that kind of also helped push a move forward into like a different role. Mm-hmm. So kind of those things. Yeah. Just having like, it's funny how you meet people along the way and they just subconsciously
guide your journey.
Yeah. Guide your journey. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's part of the reason. He had really good things to say about it. And I just took a leap and applied, I guess.
That's awesome though, because like you said, that's exactly right. Like people come along in your journey and guide you in multiple ways, sometimes positive, sometimes negative, sometimes they influence you, sometimes they influence you in the negative, like I will never be like that, or I will never do that, right? And so I think that's awesome that you kind of took that leap and gave it a shot and said, well, let's see how she goes. And I mean, you have so much training. That's the other thing. Like, you know, you're saying like having kind of moved between these careers, each career gave you such a totally different skill set and training to like then be able to have this full toolbox of like, I can fucking deal with anything because I have all of this fucking training, right?
Yeah,
Like
I love not knowing what I'm doing, I guess, and just starting from scratch. Like, let's just start over and start with something I have no idea about.
But I mean, like, again, that's how we challenge ourselves. That's how we keep ourselves, you know, moving forward, and we don't get bored, and we make sure that we're, you know, good to go. So I like that. So when you got on with animal control, what was that like process like? Was it just like you put in your application and then because you have all this background, like training and education, you had your degree, you had all this previous law enforcement experience. Was there then like a written test? Was there like what did that process look like?
Similar to the other law enforcement positions, you had to do your pair. So I had to do my pair before that. I remember getting sick right before my pair. And then I also was planning a trip with my husband. We went to Japan. So I had like a very small window to pass. So I remember being more stressed than I've ever been in my life to pass this test. I was like, put the halls in, like take the Vicks, like we're going to go through this. Like we are passing this today. So definitely the pair. We had to get that done. And then there was an interview for it. Nothing really different than any other interview. Just asking some like scenario questions, like what you know about the job, kind of before getting into it. If you have any previous experience, definitely helped. But yeah, nothing different, or nothing that really caught me off guard, honestly.
That's good. Yeah, it's a fairly straightforward process. It's through the city of Edmonton. So again, for our listeners, if that's something you're interested for, like set up that alert so that you're going to see when the hirings come out for those peace officer roles. And again, for that specialization with animal control and stuff like that. When you got on, what did the training look like then for that?
For me, it was different because they work with Solgen, and because I had done my training through Solgen with corrections, and then I had done also training with transit and conservation. I just recently done my training with conservation. So I had a bunch of those skills already. I was able to do experienced officer program. So they do that for some of the people where if you can present like your certificates, like this is my OC certificate, these are all my other certificates that I've done, then you can do experienced officer program. So for the experienced officer program, they kind of just make you go over like the refreshers of it. And then obviously everything you need to go for your role specifically, like your authorities and everything that's specific to that job that you wouldn't get from anywhere else. But they do like a full class as you would do with Solgen.
That's good though, because this is the other thing that I hear, because like we see people all the time for the pair testing, right? Oh fuck, I have to go back and do like, you know, basic training for this one now. And and it's just over, like it's just over the year and it's expired. And it's like, like that is the worst, because again, like a lot of those things, like it's just a repeat of the same shit you've already done. And if you've already been sprayed, you've already been sprayed. You don't need to be sprayed again. You know what it fucking feels like. If you've already done evoc, you don't need to do evoc again, even though it's fun. You might as well do it.
Yeah, and I'll do it again.
Yeah. But like, I mean, like a lot of that stuff, like PPCT, like, oh, fuck, oh my, again, right? So yeah, I could definitely see. I'm glad that they were like, they honored a lot of it. And like, for me, again, the frustration is when it's all Solgen. So Solgen, for our listeners that aren't within, is Solicitor General. Solicitor General and Justice is the ministry that basically oversees pretty much all law enforcement in Alberta. So sheriffs, fish and wildlife, conservation, corrections, police. They don't oversee the RCMP, but they do have like kind of a legislative like authority over RCMP based on Alberta-based laws and things like that the RCMP uphold here. But yeah, they're like the overseeing body that does all the training for a lot of us, all of our, you know, CPOIP, our Community Peace Officer Induction Program, things like that. So Solgen, yeah, like, and you're in all these different agencies, but you're doing the same fucking training, and then they don't recognize it when you move to another one, and you're like, fuck you.
Oh, yeah. I've just been so lucky. I've been so lucky that I get to redo my pair every single time I change. I'm like, again, it keeps me honest. It keeps me honest and it keeps me motivated. I'm like, hey, gotta run, gotta keep running.
It's so funny because the amount of times I get people that come and they're like, it never gets easier, Nikki. Why
No.
doesn't it get easier? Like literally every other fitness thing that you do, the more you do it, it gets easier, except for the pair and the co-band.
Yeah.
Like it fucking sucks every time. And I'm like,
does.
I know it does, guys. I know. Like, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. So then what does a day to day like as like animal control look like for you now? So you've got that training over and done with, you're on the job, you've been doing it for just over a year, you said. So what does that look like day to day?
Well, day to day, we have like an early start shift. So we start at 7. So we can get calls as early as that time. And then we have kind of 2 shifts and an on-call shift for any kind of calls in between that come in. But yeah, generally when we start in the day, they'll come in. Similar to policing, you have like a board of calls that you would like pick up on or follow up with that are already there from like complaints. So you'll follow up with them. And then throughout the day, you can get like calls that are actively being called out. So they're happening, they're in progress. So that could be for us like a dog at large. So like it could be a dog running in a school park or in traffic or something that we have to attend immediately. So those are like the major ones. Calls on our board might be like a barking complaint or like a defecation complaint. And then we might have to go out immediately respond for like a dog at large. If it's running in traffic, could cause an accident or get hit. So we want to go to those sooner than later. Those would be like more of a priority. And then we also would attend any active dog attacks that potentially come out. Sometimes police will attend depending on the severity. We'll always attend. So those are kind of the calls we would attend in the day. And yeah, like depending on how the day is going, sometimes you can do like calls. Sometimes you're getting swamped with really complex files. And then sometimes you have your time to do proactive patrols. You're walking through parks. You're looking for kind of anything, any dogs at large, or just trying to talk to people and provide education. So definitely changes day to day.
That's pretty cool though. When I had Deanna on, she's Calgary, or she was Calgary Animal Control. She had said, and I don't know if it's different between Edmonton and Calgary, which is what I'm wondering. She had said that I'm trying to think how she worded it. If it's welfare for the dog or the pet or something, then it's animal control. And if it's protecting the public, then it's enforcement. Is that similar? I might have fucked that up. I should probably go back and listen to that episode. But like it was like basically like if it's to do with, so like if the dog is outside freezing and shivering, then they would go as animal control. But if it's that the dog is barking and being a dickhead in the yard, then it would be enforcement that would go, because it's not the animal's welfare. That's what it is. If it was to do with animal welfare, the wellness of the animal or the safety of the animal, then they would go. If it was to do with the people, basically the wellness of the public, then it's enforcement, because if somebody's complaining because it's like the dog is barking or the dog is being a fucking shithead. Like.
No, I can definitely see what she's saying. I know there are a lot of differences between Calgary bylaw and Edmonton bylaw. I have a couple of friends who are in Calgary bylaw, and from the sounds of it, they kind of lump everything together. So from my understanding, I think all the officers can take all the calls, but in Edmonton, the units are kind of divided. So we take all animal calls. So it doesn't matter if it's a dog barking and just being annoying or like a nuisance, or if it's a major dog attack or animal neglect, we'll take it all. Anything at all related with animals we'll take. And then there are different areas within the city of Edmonton that will deal with like different calls. So we don't really take any of the other, like we don't take vehicle calls or any transit stuff. That's all separate. Just animals, which is kind of nice.
So animals in a hot car, you're still going to that. That would be you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good. And so then when you're going to these calls, like, how many people are on your shift or like in your platoon or troop or whatever you guys call them?
It depends. There's 2 starts. So you have like an afternoon team that will work later, and then you have a day shift. Generally, you want someone to cover kind of every quadrant of the city so that we
Mhm.
respond like appropriately. So you have like kind of 4 areas, kind of similar again to policing and how they have like different districts in different areas.
Mhm.
You have to focus on your areas and take the calls from those areas, respond to the areas.
So then when we talk about like all animal calls, so again, I'm going back to Deanna's just because she's the only other animal control officer that I spoke to. So she was responding to like domestic animals, so cats, dogs, bunnies, fucking snakes,
Yeah.
with fucking lizards, all those gross things. But then also, what about like wildlife calls? So like the deer in Edmonton that or the fucking coyotes. Holy fuck. Can we talk about the coyotes? When can we shoot those motherfuckers? We need to shoot those things. But yeah, so like are you dealing with wildlife too, or is that then calling in fish and wildlife and being like, hey, come deal with the wildlife?
Well, it's so funny. It's so funny because it definitely depends. We deal with all animals, like you said, kind of reptiles. Like they give us reptile courses to do for handling amphibians, reptiles, so snakes, all the creatures you can think of. We've had rooster calls before. We've had to go deal with roosters and chickens and honestly everything. Dogs, cats, hamsters, birds. We had to go actually get birds last week that were just flying around. Oh, what else? Coyotes, we have gotten called out to some coyotes, but we do have park rangers within the city as well. Then they also deal with coyotes. So that's kind of where like a bit of like the weirdness comes in because it's like, yeah, there's fish and wildlife too. They can also deal with coyotes. And there's also park rangers that they have a specific team that deals with that kind of stuff as well. I'm not sure how they share that space in Calgary. The difference between like conservation, because I was conservation out of Calgary, and then fish and wildlife. Fish and wildlife is they deal with like private land, like houses. So when coyotes are like going into people's backyards, more or less,
Mhm.
and then conservation's like parks and protected lands and like public spaces.
Right.
So that's how we kind of divided it in Calgary with coyotes. Sometimes we get a call to go get them, but it's not very common, honestly. And sometimes people think dogs are coyotes, or they'll see a dog and they'll describe it, and then we'll get there and they'll be like, no, it's a coyote. It's a coyote.
Okay, well that's good because yeah, they're a nuisance for sure. They're like so because now like so I'm on an acreage and so the
Mhm.
coyotes don't come near the houses out here. Like they're terrified because they will get shot out here. Like it's
Mhm.
farmland all around me. They'll just get shot. So
Yeah.
they don't come near, right? And then I was in the city over Christmas and there's a fucking coyote just running across the road. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, oh my God. Okay, people, stop feeding the fucking coyotes. I mean, just stop doing it. They're not pets. Please, for the love of Jesus.
Yeah, we get called to coyotes generally when people think they're dogs.
Yeah, yeah. So I will ask this because Deanna has some fucking insane stories of animals. What is the craziest animal that you've had to go? This bird one sounds hilarious. 'Cause how do you catch a fucking...
or the rooster.
Yes, tell me this
I mean,
rooster.
yeah, between the birds, like, I mean, the birds, having to catch birds was not ideal. But the rooster that we got, the rooster was just mean. It was not like roosters aren't, you live in an acreage. I don't know if you have like a rooster, but they're not, they can be nice, but they are also notoriously mean
Yeah.
bird. And yeah, I went to go grab it. And then thankfully I have a great partner and he was like, no, I'll grab it because he had more like protection on his arms and it just went straight for them. Immediately, no hesitation, straight for the arms.
And so what do you have to do with this? You have to capture it and bring it back? Or is it like, yeah.
This one was captured already. It's like someone had already kind of contained it. I don't know. So yeah, generally with roosters, like they're not allowed as pets in the city either.
Mhm.
So we find somewhere else, like our building would find somewhere for them to go, like a farm generally or something, kind of like get adopted out to like farms and stuff. But yeah, roosters are so funny because when they pop up, well, some people think they're chickens and then you're not allowed to have them as a pet. And there's a lot around it with like hen licenses.
Yeah.
It's one of those like weird things. But yeah, birds in general, you get like cat houses too, where you get like 30 cats and you like walk into a room and you just like feel all like 30 eyes like staring at you and you're like, okay. Gonna be good, right?
There was that lady I just saw like right before Christmas, 110 cats out of Calgary. They like confiscated from her house. 110.
Yeah.
I have 2. I can't fucking imagine 100. I can't imagine 30. I would fucking those cats would be it would be so gross. Like the smell and the
oh yeah, that would be bad. 100 cats. I've not seen 100 cats. Honestly, I think the most we've gotten like that I've been to is like 60. But even then, like, yeah, they're everywhere. They're dark. You're trying to deal with one. They're going between your legs. Like you look up and there's like cats above you batting at your head. And then like you get the easier ones first. Like so funny because it's like the different levels. Like first is like level 1, like easy cats that want to go in the kennels. You're like, okay, perfect. They're all good and compliant and going in and happy. And then you get to like level 2. They're kind of like trying to run away. They kind of like bat at your head and your arms. And you're like, okay, but they're not bad. And it's like level 3. And they're like, hey, they're full on like biting my arms. Like pissed off. They're like jumping off people's backs and shoulders, running up the walls. Like they're going into the walls. It's like, and then you get like the last, like, there's always like 2 or 3 like last cats that are like boss cats.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the boss level. They're near impossible to get out. All you can do is hear them, and you don't even know like what kind of like nightmare is behind the wall, or like what you're expecting. You just know it's not going to be good.
You're like, I am preparing for Armageddon.
Yeah,
exactly. It's going to look like, but it's coming.
It is so funny though. That's just how it is. Like the easy ones go first, and then it just gets harder as it goes along. They become more like the ones you don't want to get caught. They don't get caught until the end.
Yeah, they're like, no way. I'm not going down without a fight, lady.
No, yeah. Some people are so funny too. Like they'll warn you, be like, that one's not nice. Like, thank you. Very excited for this.
Let me note that one down. You're going last, buddy.
Yeah, we'll come back later.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. So then when you do get these massive like amounts, like because you guys are situated out of the Humane Society building, right? In Edmonton?
Yeah, we're like beside it, yes.
Okay. So then you just bring them all back there? Like, is that where all the animals that go that you basically find or have to take or whatever?
Yep. Yeah. They get brought back and they get examined and seen by vets, just to make sure they're all good and healthy, or just to see if there's any issues. They all get seen by vets and taken care of, given food. If it's like a stray, it's kind of different. Like cat houses, like it's more. No, I mean you can't have 30 cats in a house. It's just that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
But like if we do find like if we're bringing other animals back and there's like strays, we'll usually, and it's just like things that we found kind of like roaming by themselves, we can chip them and scan them and see if we can find their owner, and it's a bit easier that way. Sometimes if we can't find their owners, then we'll post online like pictures of the animals in case they're looking for them on like Facebook or on like some of the other like lost animal pages, so that they know where to look. So I know they definitely put their best foot forward to make sure that if there are owners for lost animals, that they're finding them.
That's good. That's nice that is kind of that effort goes to it, and it's just not like, yes, they're at the pound, come get them. Please,
oh no,
get them.
They put a really big effort into it. Yeah,
that's awesome. And so then, have you fallen in love with any of your animals that you've had to like take in, or have you been able to kind of maintain that like professional distance from like the animals?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I know I could never love any of them because I have a dog that would never allow me to have another dog. He's an only child. And so I already know at the end of the day, he would be such a jealous boy. My dog would never, he's an only child dog.
Yeah. He's like, don't you dare breathe. So then, does he freak out though when you come home and you smell like all the other animals?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's definitely like one puppy right now that I'm like, oh, some of them are so adorable. It is hard. Like you just love them so much. And some of them are honestly just the sweetest things ever. So it's hard not to, but
Yeah. Do you get
it's
to just
okay.
do you get to just go in and pet them if you want to? Like as part of your job?
Take them, like you have to be careful, like with some of them, especially like young dogs, like if they're puppies and they don't have like their shots or anything, or they're too young for shots, and you can't really like play around with them too much just because you don't want to like transfer disease and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But the vet staff, they do take them out for enrichment time and take them out to play and outside in like the yard that they have. So
Mhm.
you do get enrichment. But yeah, it's hard not to like fall in love with some of them when they're so sweet.
Yeah, that would be me. I'd be like, my enrichment time is that I'm going to go over there and play with them during their enrichment time.
Yeah, exactly. My dog is the only thing that keeps me level.
Yeah.
You will never allow this.
Yeah. What kind of dog do you have?
Oh, I have a French bulldog.
A Frenchie, those little
Yeah.
fuckers. The most expensive dogs in the world.
I know. He's very stubborn. He's very stubborn.
What's his name?
Sage.
Sage. Oh, that's funny. I have a friend, hers is Frank, and like fucking like he looks like a Frank, he acts like a Frank, he
Yeah.
just is this fucking every time I look at him, I'm like fucking Frank.
I know. He's so stubborn. Like his personality is so funny. I'm just like, oh,
I love that. Well, we've talked about a lot. We've covered like a freaking lot in this episode, which is amazing. But I want to wrap up with some rapid fire questions for you. So the number one I always ask this, and I'm very interested because you've been through so many different ones. You might have different answers for your different areas that you've been in. But what is your favorite food or snack while you are working?
my favorite food or snack. Oh, definitely. I don't even know if it's a food. I would say coffee. I live off coffee. I need coffee every day. Food, I don't even know. Like sometimes I will just drink coffee and it's like this gets me through everything. If it's cold, I'll still drink it. And I'll sometimes like bring coffee from home and I'm like, hey, let's get the second coffee just in case. You don't have time to stop. We need to be prepared.
I used to work with somebody who would do that. He would make his own good like home coffee, bring it in his like Yeti cup, right? So it's still hot. Like it's not
Yeah.
like it got cold on the way to work. And he would still stop and get a like extra large Tim's
Yeah.
and come in with his coffee, his own coffee in his cup, and then the Tim's. And then
Yeah.
he would drink the Tim's first because the Yeti coffee would stay hotter longer.
Yes.
And I was like, why are you doing this? Like, you could just come to work and we could make coffee here at work. And he's like, it's just what I do, Nikki. And I'm like, okay, bud.
Smart guy. Smart
Just what
guy.
you do.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question I have is what out of all of the jobs that you've had, what is the favorite piece of equipment or kind of like job specific thing that you've gotten to use?
Ooh. My favorite thing, honestly, okay, this is gonna probably sound crazy, but not crazy. My favorite thing probably would be I loved having a shotgun just because it's so outside of like my world. I don't have a hunting background. So when I went to conservation, I had virtually no experience with any firearms. Like I had like seen people shoot before, like on my family's farm and stuff like that, but not really myself ever.
Mhm.
So for me, I think just because that was like a tool that provided like the biggest challenge for me to be able to, I don't know, ultimately like get to a point where I'm like shoot and shotgun specifically because that was my worst shot. That was my hardest one for some reason. And yeah, for that reason, just because it was the hardest tool to learn, it was just the one that gave me the biggest challenge. The one thing I'm just like the most excited to have learned, honestly, would be my shotgun, which is kind of funny to say because I don't know if I'll ever shoot again, but I loved it while it lasted.
Exactly. Well, and like you said, it was something that you struggled with and then you overcame it and you're like, damn, yes, I can. Like, I can do this. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I like that. Okay. What is something that you find super challenging in your role right now?
Oh, that's easy because I think the biggest challenge for me right now is just having so many years working with people and dealing with offenders that I find that comes very natural and easy to me. And now it's kind of shifted like to animals. I still deal with some offenders, but now like primarily like dealing with aggressive dogs, you're trying to read that body language. Like the difference for me is when I'm dealing with an offender, I can give them a direction. And I know if I give them a direction, like if they don't understand it, it's because, or if they're not following it, it's because that's their choice. Like they can, we speak the same language. I can say something to a dog, but it's not going to know what I'm saying. It's just such a big difference, a big shift from dealing with people to dealing with animals. It's just learning to read that behavior. It's definitely gotten better over time, but that was the biggest shift for me, honestly, was just, and there's just so many different animals out there too, from like cats to dogs, like watching for the tail tuck, watching for like the hackles to go up. Like it is like somewhat like known, the symptoms and stuff like that, the signs to look for, but then like trying to differentiate between, okay, is this dog being fearful or is it being more aggressive? Looking for those signs and trying to figure out, okay, if I approach this dog, is it going to lunge at me? Is it going to bite me or is it going to like retreat? So I think that's the hardest thing for me, just because I've kind of gone through my career dealing with people and offenders, that like making that transition into animals and dealing with like aggressive animals, it's sometimes more difficult to be able to like read those signs and like, you know, communicate with the dog. Like you're going to be okay. Like you can still talk to it, but it's not the same for me as dealing with people.
I think that's so interesting that you say that, because that's something I never even would have thought about, like at all. And then like you're saying, like majority of offenders, people, we have like specific ways we deal with them. So we're either empathetic, we're compassionate, maybe we're fucking aggressive and we're like, you're going to do what you're told. There's like probably maybe five ways that you deal with people, right? Like, and it doesn't matter. Black, white, green, blue, purple, fucking speaks English, doesn't speak English. Like we have body language that is universal. Like you can tell. And then when you said that animals, so not only animals not understanding English, a lot of them, like not like, you know, you're not having a conversation with the dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we making a good choice right now, bud? Because I don't think we're making it right. Like you're not having that conversation with the dog.
Yeah.
But also then the difference between a dog, a cat, a bird, a fucking lizard, a snake, a hamster, a guinea pig, and all of their different tells and reads, and like, oh, dude, that is crazy. That would be so hard. That would be so hard.
The other crazy thing is that even like, this is the same thing as people, but again, I find it just harder. You don't know until you know. Like some animals have a preference too. Like I've come across, like my partner have gone to calls before where like dogs will come to me and not be like, they'll be scared of him, or like vice versa. Like we had this one dog that terrified of me, loved him, and it was a massive dog. So it was trying to pull away from me and then he took it and it was fine. But it's so funny. Like how, same thing with people. I mean, some people like guys are dealing with girls better. And like, there are definitely dogs who like see the uniform too, and they hate it. And, or like they've been like strays before or at large before, and they see us, they're like, no, I don't want to go back there. Like, you know? So that's kind of funny in that sense.
Yeah. Oh, that is, like I said, I never ever would have even thought about that as like a skill that you need to learn, and like how challenging that would be. That's just, crazy. Wow. Well, like I said, I mean, we've covered a lot, tons of great information, tons of really cool like shifts and changes in your career, which I think is amazing. And I just want to thank you for taking the time and the opportunity to come on the show and share it all with us. Cause there's been a lot of learning for me, and I'm sure for our listeners. So thank you for doing that. Do you have any last words or any info that you wanted to share with the listeners?
No, I just think that like going through all my roles, like there's not really ever a time where like we kind of said before, I feel like anything is possible if you ever want to be like a police officer or going to law enforcement. Like it's never too late. Like doors are always open for like anybody. I don't think there's really like, or should be an age restriction, as long as you're willing to put like a good effort into it. So if you're interested in law enforcement and you want to start, then this is your sign. It's never too late.
Love that. This is your sign. That's exactly right. If you found this podcast and you've tuned in, This is your sign to join the rest of the badass women and become a law enforcement officer or a first responder, really. Any first responder career. Yes, go for it. I love that. Well, like I said, amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
Yay, thank you so much. You too.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six.